little film called Avatar: Way of the Water. How big will this film go in New Zealand? Back in 2009, it did $17 million. And it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
Welcome along to episode 7 of the Film Man and the Film Fan. I'm here with Dan, the owner of Matakana Cinemas, and we're using the beautiful Vintry, which is right next to the cinemas, which is perfect. If you want to see a movie, grab a drink. You can do that, right, Dan?
Absolutely, you can.
Yeah. We're going to talk about, in this episode, our favourite movies from the year, how things are performed here at the box office as well.
Sounds good to me. I think you mentioned in the last podcast, you were really interested in knowing a bit more about how we would program trailers onto feature films.
Yeah, that's good, yeah. I want to geek out about that.
Yep.
You can give me some stats and some thinking and some art and some science.
I can definitely help you with that one.
And then we'll have a look at what's happening over Christmas and as we head into summer 2023.
Yeah, fantastic release slate, and I'm really looking forward to telling you about it.
Awesome. So my favourite of the year is Top Gun. Obviously, that's got to be one of the biggest movies of the year, right?
You and millions of other people.
Yeah. It's made a lot of money. Just recently I've seen See How They Run, which I really loved. That was a great movie. It was quick, but it was just interesting and quirky. I thought it was shot well, and I couldn't figure out the answer until the very end, so that's always good on a movie.
Good twist, eh?
Yeah, it was really good. Yeah. And then I saw with my wife here at Matakana Cinemas, Don't Worry, Darling. And yeah, when the lights came up at the end of that movie, virtually everyone in the cinema just went, what? What was that all about? Because I think it had the potential to be a really good movie. I loved the premise. It had great actors, but there was just bits dropped in the middle that me, just being a cinema buff, commercial guy, just went, are those shots really necessary? Why are all these people dancing in a circle in different colours and all these things? So I thought it would have been a great movie, but all that sort of stuff just kind of threw you off. It sort of went, okay, we're here, we're veering that way, oh, hang on, we're going that way. And so at the end of it, you're trying to go, what actually happened? What was this movie all about? Which is probably not what they were after.
Maybe the captain didn't steer the ship too straight.
No.
Steering around icebergs or something. I mean, there was a lot of issues, I guess you could call them, in the lead up to that film, wasn't there? And I was actually pretty impressed with how the film performed in New Zealand. It did reasonably well. Yeah. I wonder if the old adage of any press is good press helped that film, because it really it was out there in terms of promotion, but also the media, I think, sort of pumped it up with the issues that were going on around the film.
There was so much going on with it. It was in the press all the time. As you say, probably helped drive people to the cinema. As I say, it would have been a good movie, but it wasn't really for me in the end. What about yourself? What are your favourite movies so far this year, and what's performed well here at the cinema?
Okay, to answer your first question, I think looking back at my film calendar here, there's a lot of stuff in there. I mean, I do see a lot of movies because I should see a lot of movies. If I could try and pull out 3 or 4 of them, Blockbuster of the year has to be Top Gun.
Yes, absolutely.
I loved the original film because at the time it was released, I was 9.
Yeah.
I loved jet planes, and it's very America, and so is the new film. But it was a film that knew exactly what it wanted to do and absolutely nailed the brief. And the word of mouth on it was clearly fantastic, because we had people who were a bit funny about seeing the film. It's not my kind of thing, or I may well see it, and then eventually, the word of mouth just got too strong for it. We're hearing from possibly friends saying, you've got to go and see it, I'll take you, I'll buy you a ticket, and that happened a lot. So, the power of a great film just getting people in the door. Blockbuster, perfect popcorn film. One of the best popcorn films in a long time. Big ups to Top Gun Maverick. And looking at my diary, I tend to veer on the side of enjoying art house titles more than blockbusters. Right. So that was a little bit outside the box for me, but just was so good. Cannot be denied. So my favourite films of the year would have to be Licorice Pizza, which came out right at the start of 2022.
Right.
Fantastic LA Tale, little bit Boogie Nights, a little bit Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I loved that film. Really, really cool film. Drive My Car, the Japanese film that did well at the Oscars back in the Oscar season. A big 3-hour epic that just you had to let wash over you. I loved that film. It was really beautiful.
Yeah.
And then I also loved the New Zealand documentary Whitu Marama. What a beautiful film. Yeah. A film that I really feel like New Zealanders should see, and I wouldn't be surprised if it makes its way into New Zealand curriculum in schools at some point. It's one of those kind of films. Really beautiful. Would happily see it again. Yeah. And another one that I'd love to mention is Official Competition, which is a Spanish film starring Penelope Cruz and Antonio Banderas, which is a huge skewering as in like kebabs. Of how pretentious filmmakers and actors can be. Right. And it's a movie about making a movie. And it's just brilliant. I loved it. I would go out on a limb here and say potentially that was my favourite film of the year.
Oh, okay. Really?
Little film that really punched above his weight. I loved it. Felt when you're watching it very much like a COVID era film, and that there's quite a small cast that's set in only a handful of places. You could tell it was kind of filmed in a very small bubble, but beautifully scripted and absolutely hilarious at times. So I'd highly recommend if you haven't seen it out there to go and check it out. So there's my list.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, and we've got some big blockbuster movies coming up as well. Yeah. So as far as the box office goes, was Top Gun the one, do you think?
Top Gun was definitely the one. It is now our number 4 film of all time here at Matakana out of 1,200 films that we've shown over the years, or 15 or 16. I can't remember exactly what the number is. So it managed to work its way up there, falling in behind Hunt for the Wilder People, The Force Awakens, and Boy, or Mamma Mia. Yeah. One of those two is film number 3. Yeah. And it really did push the box office to incredible heights, along with Elvis and Minions: The Rise of Gru.
Oh, yes, it was all about the same time, wasn't it?
Through June and July. 3 really, really great films. Honestly, all really good films. Know exactly what they were going to do. Baz Luhrmann did an amazing job with Elvis. Yes. Incredibly lush film. Yeah. People loved it. We had to keep bringing it back for encore sessions because the demand was there. Top Gun just went for about 4 or 5 months. Yes. And Minions is exactly what kids want to see. Kids want to go to the cinema and laugh and have a silly time. They don't want to think too much. No. And I feel like sometimes Pixar films go a little bit too high for kids. And I think, for better or for worse, Illumination Studios have nailed the formula. Yeah. And that really, really helped box office-wise in June and July, and it sort of filtered through a little bit into August, and then it's been a bit tougher through August, September, October, running at about 20% below what we would like to in a good year. Yeah. That's setting aside 2020 and 2021, obviously COVID-affected years. And then in November, it's kind of about the same. So we're just, there's a few things going on at the moment, outside forces that are contributing, I think, potentially. However, the show must go on, and looking forward, there's some really promising content, opening right about now, as we release this new podcast, is a little film called Avatar: Way of the Water. Wow,
I mean, it's going to be massive, that movie, isn't it? We've waited, what was it, 2009, I think, was the last movie? It's been a while, in between drinks there, James Cameron.
Yeah, you might have just noticed I didn't mention Avatar as one of our biggest ever films.
Oh, okay.
Takana.
Yeah.
There's a little story behind that. Maybe we'll save that one for another
time.
Okay,
sure.
Yeah, before I was actually running the joint. But the first Avatar film is the biggest film in New Zealand history, and also global box office, it is also the biggest film. Thanks to its re-release back in September, where cinemas were just playing it for a week or two. Yeah. And it performed actually really well, which is great signs for the sequel. How big will this film go in New Zealand? Back in 2009, it did $17 million in New Zealand. And for a bit of context around that, the last Lord of the Rings film did about 14, Hunt for the Wilder People did about 13, Force Awakens did about 15,
Okay, it's right up there.
These are big films doing big money.
Yeah.
So 17 is the benchmark in New Zealand. So, obviously ticket prices are different now, 13 years later.
Yeah.
For inflation, will the film do the equivalent, which would be, say, 20 million?
Yeah.
Not sure. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens. I think, first and foremost, people will come and see it. But
yes,
the film needs to be really good for it to get into those sort of upper echelon numbers.
Yes.
And that's an exciting prospect. Nevertheless, I think we've got a big film on our hands.
Yeah, well, Cliff Curtis is in it. So, there's a Kiwi in it, and there's a lot of Māori influence in some of the design work as well. Of course, with James Cameron doing everything in New Zealand. So, it's going to be great to see him in the film and see how it goes, for sure.
I think the Kiwi flavour really does add a little bit of spice to the way things are going to roll out. And I do think that once you start seeing the marketing really ramp up, probably in the next week or so, as the film opens, there's going to be a lot of media probably touching on those aspects you just mentioned.
Yeah. Okay. Before we get into all the movies coming up over the holiday season, I remember last time in the podcast, Dan, I asked a question because I'm really fascinated about the trailers that you play with movies, because when I lived with the family over in Dubai, you go to the movies and they just play any trailer that would go on with the movie. Like at the time, I remember we went to see a kids movie and the trailer they showed, Planet of the Apes. And I'm like, oh my goodness. And so we're covering Aiden's eyes and ears because monkey on the screen. So they obviously had no rules, but you do program the trailers for the movie, right?
So to a certain extent, there is free license for the cinema to do it. I can't speak for how the chains would do their programming, whether it's centralised.
Yeah, sure.
For us, I'm the one who programs the trailers to the features.
Yeah.
In terms of obligations legally, we are not allowed to show an M-rated trailer on a PG film, for example.
Yeah.
And of course, that extrapolates out to an R13 on an M and so on. So I would at a guess say the majority of films sit in the M-rated, category in New Zealand. And then, there's a percentage that are R-rated and then a percentage that are G or PG. So you can kind of make it easy on yourself and display M-rated trailers on most M-rated films.
Yeah, sure.
And, of course, if you've got a G-rated film, you can only play G-rated trailers, which is actually quite difficult because a lot of kids' film trailers are PG these days.
Right, true.
So it has to be a very, very safe trailer.
Sure.
And each week we get a report from the Film Labelling Video Board of New Zealand, which tells us the latest trailers and what they've been rated at. So the trailers do get rated.
Okay.
And what the new ratings that are coming in for new feature films. So we can match those up.
Yeah.
So when I'm programming trailers on the films for the coming week, which we do on a weekly basis, I do it on a Tuesday. They get programmed into each of our cinemas on a Wednesday for the opening day on Thursday. I'm looking at things like the rating first and foremost, making sure that we're safe there, tick that box.
Yeah.
And then I'm saying, well, what trailers do we have on hand? And usually it's anywhere between 30 and 40, up to 50 or 60 trailers that we've got available to us.
I didn't realise there's that many.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I'm looking to match up, right? So if we are trailering, say, Avatar Way of the Water, I'm going to go, okay, well, what have we got coming up that works really well for that target demographic?
Yes.
And to be fair, probably the target demographic for Way of the Water is pretty broad.
Yeah.
They're big films, much like Top Gun, not so niche, but if I'm looking to program on a film like that, I'm probably going to put something like Shazam.
Yes.
A Marvel film or an action blockbuster title that we've got coming up that we've actually got the trailer available for. If I'm programming for an art house film or, say, a British-centric film, then I'll look for a trailer that might have Sally Hawkins or, Maggie Smith or something on it, because you're really looking at the demographics that are most likely to come to that film and put the trailers in front of them that make them turn in to say to their friend, oh, I can't wait to see that.
That's right,
It's it's pretty straightforward. You know,
Yeah.
you want to market to the people who are wanting to see those films.
Okay, well that's good. So there is some science and art behind it. That's
There
for
is
sure.
some science and art, and then I can go into screen ratios and all that kind of stuff. But I won't.
Oh man, that sounds a bit technical.
Yes.
So we're going into the holiday season, Christmas and summer holidays, and there's quite a few movies coming out, aren't there?
Yeah. Again, Avatar: Way of the Water is just going to play and play and play. It's a very long film, so hopefully it's really good and it doesn't feel long while you're watching it.
Yeah.
So that's going to take up a lot of screen space. The film that I think is going to be not necessarily a challenger to the box office, but is certainly going to pull in some pretty big numbers, I feel, is the new Puss in Boots.
Oh, yeah. I've watched the trailer for it. I mean, I just love Antonio Banderas, the way he plays that whole character. I've seen one big scene where it's all about, because all you remember from when he was in Shrek was the giant eyes, and there's a scene in there that's just absolutely brilliant where they talk about cuteness overload. And it's so good, isn't it?
Well, I think you will get more of the cuteness overload, Brent. So
Yeah.
you'll be really happy about that. We'll get you into that screening.
Oh, I'd love that, yeah.
You can be overloaded with the cuteness.
I'll be the tall guy sitting amongst all the kids, yeah.
Yeah, with your fluffy toy.
Yeah, that's right.
just
Yeah.
something that- So, really great buzz on the film. I've spoken to a couple of people in the industry who've seen it.
Yes.
Fantastic. And if you go to our old friend Rotten Tomatoes, it's sitting at about 98% on early reviews.
Okay.
Apparently it's as good as, if not better than the original, which is fantastic news. And it's going to be the big animated film for the school holiday.
Yes, yeah.
There's a film called The Banshees of Inisherin from Martin McDonough, and he was the director of In Bruges and 3 Billboards Outside Ebbing, Missouri, which was many people's favourite film of 2017.
Yeah.
It's starring Brendan Gleeson and Colin Farrell.
Okay.
Basically, the story is 2 really good friends who fall out.
Oh, okay.
That's the premise.
Right.
Apparently, it's stunning. I can't wait to see it. I mean, all of the aforementioned attributes about that film tick all the boxes for me personally, so I can't wait to see it. So that's a Boxing Day release. Also on Boxing Day, as I mentioned, Puss in Boots. Oh, by the way, we've got some preview screenings of that in the next few days.
I'll be in.
So you've got to do it. The Lost King, starring the always wonderful Sally Hawkins,
Yes, yeah.
is about the discovery of the remains of King Richard III.
Oh, yeah. I've watched the trailer for that. It looks really good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's a bit of a female empowerment story because she's adamant that she has worked it out.
Yeah.
That he's buried under a car park
Yes.
in this town. And all the guys who are the experts are saying, no. So really excited to see her kick some ass in that film.
Yeah.
Also on Boxing Day, you being a music fan, Brent,
Yes.
this one might just appeal to you. I'm not sure if you're a Whitney Houston fan, but we have I Want to Dance with Somebody.
Oh, yes. I've watched the trailer for this one as well. Who's playing Whitney Houston?
So Brent, a young girl by the name of Naomi Ackie is starring as Whitney.
Yeah.
And I mean, I don't know a huge amount about the arc of the film, but I guess it's going to show,
Yes.
the tragedy of the story and also the huge success, one of the greatest selling artists
Oh,
in
absolutely.
history.
Yeah.
And we played The Greatest Showman a few years ago, and films like that really do work at that time of year. I think her music still resonates hugely for
It does,
people.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
I reckon they'll probably end up doing a karaoke version because that's just what happens.
Oh, yeah. We can all sing along to I Will Always Love You.
Absolutely. Speaking of which, Titanic re-release early in 2023.
Is it?
Yes.
Oh, I see. James Cameron's on a roll, isn't he?
He is on a roll. Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. So that takes us through the Boxing Day stuff. What else have we got coming up? On the 1st of January, we've got a film that stars Mia Wasikowska. It's got Eric Bana, and that is called Blueback. And that looks like a fantastic family film coming from Rose Distribution, and it's from the same filmmakers as Paper Planes, which is a little Australian film that came out a few years ago. So that's another one for the families. On January the 5th, we've got a film that played at the New Zealand Film Festival, which at the time journalists were saying, why is this film not being released wider in cinemas?
Yeah.
It's finally getting released in New Zealand, January the 5th, Marcel, the Shell, with Shoes On.
Okay.
If you don't know about it, go and check out the trailer. The trailer is absolutely gorgeous. It's about a little shell. It's a stop motion crossed with live action animation film.
Yeah.
All I've got to say is, watch that trailer because it looks fantastic. Cannot wait to see it. And so on January the 12th, we've got Guy Ritchie's new film.
Oh, okay.
So Operation Fortune, Ruse to Guerre, I believe it's pronounced. This was a film that was meant to come out about a year and a half ago. And like a lot of films through the COVID pandemic, were pushed back.
Yes.
It's got a fantastic cast. Josh Hartnett returns.
Oh, really?
From kind of out of nowhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, Aubrey Plaza, who's actually rocking along at the moment in The White Lotus. She's
very funny,
in the film. And you've got Jason Statham, of course. Who's in the film as well. Action, bit of casino stuff in there, a little bit Bondy. And I think that's going to work really well as kind of the counter-programming action film to, say, Avatar. And, it's M-rated too. It's not an R-rated film, which The Gentleman was, which cut out a chunk of audience that wanted to see that film. So that's really exciting. And another film which we're releasing a week later than the rest of New Zealand is a film called The Fablemans.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, so do you know about that film and who directed it?
Oh, no. I've gone blank for that, but I have seen the trailer for it.
Yeah. So it's based roundly on the childhood and the adolescence of a small filmmaker by the name of Steven Spielberg.
Yes, that's right. That's right.
So it's his latest film, and a lot of the buzz coming out of the US, where it's opened recently and it's really overperformed in the market, is that this film is incredibly stunning and a really, really beautiful story. Steven Spielberg very rarely puts a foot wrong, and it's why he's regarded as one of the greatest filmmakers. So it's another film to look out for. So that takes us through to sort of mid-January. So there's a whole lot of really good stuff going on there, and it's a really nice mix of family content, crossover content, discerning content, and just big screen action. So you're really happy with the mix.
Oh, that's good. So get all your tickets for Matakana Cinema. In the next podcast, there's been a lot of movies that have been pushed back from this year to next year, including Indiana Jones, the new movie, and Shazam, which I was disappointed because I really want to see Shazam. I really enjoyed the first one. So I think in the next podcast, we'll have a look at some of those, shall we?
Absolutely. That'd be fantastic. Hot off the press, I just had a phone conversation not long before we recorded. Apparently the new Shazam is incredible. And from someone who is very much a fan of the first film, says, I quote, 50% better.
Oh, wow.
So that bodes really well. So it was a bit of a shame that it moved out of the January 5th window. But we don't have to wait too long. It comes out March 16th.
That's cool. So we'll look at that in episode number 8 of The Film Man and the Film Fan. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome. Great to talk to you.